Alright guys, I wanted to do a short video here on the current Z system that I have for my printer. It's based pretty much on the Hydra by 0G, which is some variant of some other printer, maybe a Hevord or something like that. I'm not quite sure, but what it does is it utilizes a linear rail on each side. It's a triple system, one in the back, two in the front. And then on these lift arms, it has a linear rail at 45 degrees on each side here. And then it has another linear rail in the back. I don't know if you can see that, that's straight. And the idea here is that it can't move left or right because this 45 degree here, it doesn't allow it. Okay? So it can shift backwards, okay, or it could rotate like this, except that it's fixed in the back corner to one single point. And so the bed that I have is a normal bed from a machine where the mounting holes are 30 millimeters in from the left and then 30 millimeters back. So this distance is quite a ways away from the carriage. So there's quite a bit of a moment here, and so I had to put a spring on the bottom here to pull these lift arms toward the center so that they wouldn't vibrate back and forth and cause the bed, because any movement here will cause this bed to move laterally. This has kind of been a problem for me. It does print well under maybe 10,000 acceleration, but there is movement there. So I'm gonna replace this system with something else, but I want to kind of show you what we've got here. So I've got my indicator set up. There we go. And I'm going to lightly put pressure on this bed. Okay, that's not much force right there. And you've got 0.1 millimeters this direction, and then if I pull it, I can get 0.18 millimeter. So see, there's quite a bit of movement there. The lift arm also, let's go to this lift arm. Well, we'll go to this lift arm here. And see, just pulling the lift arm back and forth. I'm not putting a lot of force on it. I don't have a force gauge that I can set up here to show how much force I'm putting on this, but it is twisting. And it's moving around. I don't know if you can see where it's moving there. But it actually moves quite a bit. So the spring is just here to mitigate some issues that I had with layer stacking. The spring helps quite a bit. So if you've got kind of a Hydra system and you've got a way to join these three lift arms together, you can do that quite easily with a spring or a bungee cord or something that's flexible. You don't want it too rigid. You know, I've even got a piece of stainless steel here, welding rod, bent around this to give a little bit more pressure to this. These springs I found at Lowe's. I want to say they're about 10 inches long, and there are two springs on here. And I've got even some tie wraps here to join it. It's definitely some hokey stuff here. I want to also point out that for this system to work and make prints that are with tolerance, it is critical that this rail, actually all three rails, are trammed into the frame or the gantry in order for it to print square. So you have to put an indicator on the edge of this rail and indicate it to, ideally to each rail, but they're so far away that it's hard to indicate that. So I indicated these off the frame here in the front, okay, vertically, so that they don't skew, you know, one way or the other. It is extremely critical that all three are trammed in, so that when that bed goes up and down, it is following the axis or the plane that it's supposed to be on. That can make your prints, you know, the bottom could be in the center, and then as you raise up it could start to move over to one side, or, you know, many different things. This alignment is just super critical. So today I'm going to change this system. I'm going to keep the mounting of everything, except I'm going to change the back only. I'm going to go ahead and move this indicator out of the way here and see if I can just show you. If you look here, you see it moving. It's not a lot of pressure. Even here, okay, and this movement has nothing to do with the coupling here. Here you have some magnets. There's a ball inside here, and then this thing is trapped down to this carriage. So most of the flex that I see is coming from the carriage itself in the back here, and then it's just moving around. There is some flex in the plastic. You can really see it down here. I'm trying not to move the printer as I do it. Okay. So the system that I'm going to put on here, these will have zero effect whatsoever. These can move around, it won't matter. You don't have to have these aligned at all. You mount them any way you want. It's not going to matter. So that's what I got. I'm going to go ahead and proceed to installing this new system, and then we'll measure again and see what we've got. Alright guys, gals, I've changed my Z system from basically a Hydra like the 0G. It wasn't exactly like the 0G. It's something that I saw the 0G and I said, that looks pretty cool. Let me go ahead and design something for my printer like that, and that's what I did, and that's what I've been using. But I noticed that I had that play, as you saw in the video, and it always bothered me. So I wanted something that was going to be a little more rigid, and so I've got this dual rail system here in the back, and there's one plate that clamps the two carriages together. There's hardly zero play at all on the carriages when they're bolted that way, And I've got here a constant rate spring as a counterweight for the assembly here on the bottom. So inside here I've got a universal joint from a Ford F-250 1997, and I drew up these brackets to be bolted together, but as I was building it I decided it just would be a lot easier for me to weld it together. That way I don't have to worry about the threads and the bolts and drilling and tapping the holes, and it was just much easier to weld this than it was to bolt it together. So, and I've got here on these caps here, they kind of preload this joint so it can't slide forward or backward or left and right. Then there's also up here on the top, it's probably really hard to see, but this universal joint is sitting in a V-block. There's a V's on each side and V's over here. And I've got a bolt on the top here and a bolt on the top on the other side that puts a little pressure down on it to stop this universal from raising up. Or in this case there's a bolt here that stops the universal from coming out of that V. So you probably could just use the weight of the bed to keep it in there. I just wanted to make sure, and so I made up some plastic parts here that will put a little pressure on there so it can't bounce in that V block. So it's mounted to a 2080 extrusion in the back, and then this 2080 is bolted to this 3mm plate in the back. So there are bolts all going up on the back side of this to hold this against this plate, because the moment of this bed is pretty long from this point, so it's going to want to try to twist it, and so everything bolted together is going to make it pretty rigid. Here in the front, all I have is a ball bolted to the bed, and then another cup magnet right here which can slide on this washer. And that washer is bolted in. I countersunk the fender washer, and it's bolted in. So it can slide on here. It's not going to have any impact on the bed at all. This can move all at once. In fact, you could install these rails crooked if you wanted to, and it's really not going to affect the accuracy of the bed. All the movement, or the lateral movement, is controlled by that assembly in the back here. I haven't printed with it yet. I just got it together today, and I'm checking things over and I'm running some tests. I've got my gauge set up here, and I'm just testing it to make sure everything is okay, and to see how rigid it is. I've got another test I'm going to stick in the video of the printer is running about 600 millimeters a second with 20 square corner at 50,000 acceleration, and I'm getting a little bit of bounce on the indicator, about 0.03. It's hard to see, but the printer's moving around, so even though the indicator mag base is connected to a steel part of the frame, you know, I notice that when I hold the printer a little bit, the numbers they might bounce to 0.01, but there is some deflection there, and I don't really expect to print at 600 millimeters a second at, you know, at 50,000 unless I'm doing a speed bench here or something like that. So anyway, we'll see how this goes and see how it holds up. So far it seems for sure more rigid than what I had, so it's better than what I had so far. Is it the best out there? I don't know. I don't think so, but this is what I have so far. And you know, as with everything, you try something for some period of time and you find the flaws in it, and then you may decide to change or leave it, depending on your, you know, what kind of outcome you want. So, and this bed can go up and down, and it can pivot, but it cannot move laterally. Well, it can within reason anyway. So enjoy. pushing considerably harder than in my previous test. I don't know that you're going to see these forces when you're printing, but this sure is not much deviation. You can see my thumb just pushing pretty good here. There's not getting much deflection there at all.